What is happening in there? J Gaming Dude here, and I'm going to be making another tier list. Welcome to the weekly tier list video, I guess, at this point. I feel like I've made one every week at this stage. Yeah, that seems about right. What, Ratchet and Clank, Need for Speed, and now Spyro 2 levels, because I love me my Spyro, and Spyro 2 is the game that I know about the most. I think out of the entire series. Well, I mean, I vaguely remember a good amount of Spyro 3, but Spyro 2, I know the back of my head, and I could talk ages about. And so I figured, you know what? Since I'm so knowledgeable about it, why don't I actually try and make a tier list of it? So here we are, pretty much. Now, yeah, I'm gonna go in order of the order that you visit each level, because I was actually going to think about doing it in the order that you can 100% the levels, but then that might create a bit of a confusing order, so I figured, you know what, let's just kind of do it in the order you visit each level. So, Spyro 2, immediately after leaving Dragon Shores, we find ourselves in Glimmer. Now, Glimmer is, I'm going to put that in A, because I think that's a great level. It's a great introductory level. It has some very simple platforming here and there. It introduces you to the potential of locked off areas, power-ups which aren't very prevalent. So you've got the Superfly power-up at the back in the area after you've kind of gone through the entire level and pretty much reached the end. It's a short level, it's small, it's packed, it's tight, it's got a lot of good stuff in it, just to kind of get you to grips with controlling Spyro as a character, just being able to sort of jump around from place to place without feel like as if you're going to, miss a ledge or hit something else. And the orbs are quite basic as well that you can get in this level. 400 gems as usual. I think every level in the game has 400 gems, so nothing too notable about that. It does good for a basic level within the Spyro universe, and is a great introductory level. It also, I guess, introduces the idea of having to come back afterwards, because when you originally enter the cave in this level, which doesn't take you long to get through, to be completely honest, because again, very short level, it's pretty much just before the halfway point. I guess it's pretty much at the halfway point of the level, because again, it depends on if you want to go for 100% completion and get whatever you can now, versus just finishing level just because. So halfway through the level, when you enter the cave, to your right hand side you'll see a ladder, and you'll know that you need to climb it, but in order to do that you need to learn how to climb, and then you can go up it. So replayability is something that's also introduced pretty much early on. Now, the next on the list is Summer Forest. Now, with Summer Forest, that is going to a straight S rank. I think Summer Forest is my favorite level, I think, in all of the Spyro games. And when I say all the games, I'm talking specifically the original trilogy, so 1, 2, and 3. But in 2, definitely my favorite, because it's a really, really nice place. The music is serene. The variety of locations in a single area is all over the place, and there is a lot to see, which is really nice. There's a good amount of secrets, there's a good amount of things to see, places to go to. It teaches you a lot of the basic things, like being able to swim, being able to sort of run, jump, and glide with Hunter. You meet a lot of the main characters here. I am a sucker for places that have, a good amount of water or beaches or something along those lines. So I think that Summer Forest is just really, really good, and also it has a wide variety of levels as a hub world as well. So its basic feature is that it's a hub world. That's the most important thing. Then everything else kind of comes after that. So very nice level. I can't say enough good things about it. I think we should just probably move on. Next on the list is Colossus. Now, Colossus is going to go to a B rank, because definitely not as good as Glimmer or Summer Forest in terms of overall level design, because what Glimmer has going for it is that it's an introductory level, and usually these are pretty basic, but its basicness is where its charm is. In terms of Colossus, this level is fairly linear. You can go from place to place. It isn't as open in terms of other levels in the game. The rams, whatever you want to call them, pretty much the enemy on the right side here, are really annoying. The Yeti is a little bit confusing, don't know why he's there. The ice skating can be kind of frustrating if you're not used to that sort of thing, but when you do have a strategy down, it can be quite easy. There is at least some variety with how the entire thing is pretty much like on a snowy mountain. The entire level is on a snowy mountain, and then you've got like an ice skating rink. You've got a good amount of secrets as well. You only have 2 orbs if I remember right in this level that you can earn. Hold on. No. Sorry. 3, because you beat ice skating twice, and then you've got flaming all of the evil spirits, which is certainly not as like fun as some of the other orbs that we might have seen, like Summer Forest having a lot of secrets and Glimmer just being like sort of more of a, hey, here's how you do things. So the freshness of Glimmer still makes Colossus look not as great. So yeah, it's okay as far as levels go. Next on the list is Idle Springs. Now this one goes into the A rank. Now the reason why I put Idle Springs at an A is because yes, there are a limited number of things that you can do in Idle Springs, but the variety of locations, paths that you can take, so variety is not particularly high. Most of the level is completely green. I mean, the residents are green. I like the opening video for this, because the opening video for Idle Springs is absolutely hilarious, which involves these little green dudes. Other than that, one of the orbs is actually to do 3 separate tasks, which is something that is new and introduced. I don't think a lot of orbs in the game actually do that, where you have to do, rather than a singular task, because sometimes a singular task will give you multiple orbs. Like in the case of Colossus, ice skating, you'll get 2 orbs out of it, but the thing is you need to win ice skating against a single goalie, and then it becomes a one-on-one game of ice skating, of hockey. Actually, why do I keep saying ice skating? It's hockey, goddamn. Yeah, it's hockey. So you versus the goalie, and then it becomes you and another player, with both of you guys having goalies. So there is that. Idle Springs is, it's a great level. It's got additional paths for if you want to get all of the gems in the game, which can be frustrating if you don't know how to go about the level. But again, it does have a decent amount of quality to it. Moving on from that, and also I do need to mention with Idle Springs, one of the orbs is very frustrating, which is the hula girls on the pedestals. Yeah, that can be real annoying, so probably the only real downside of that level from what I can tell. Hurricos. This one is going on the same level as Colossus, in the sense that it's just dreary, raining. It's not as fun to kind of go through. The dreariness of Hurricos is kind of unfortunate. Also, when I say frustrating orbs, I think Hurricos is 2 orbs that you get from gliding from place to place in order to turn off the generator was pretty annoying. But in saying that, and also actually now that I think about it, going around and taking those these enemies that steal the power source of the generators in like sort of side area that you need to find yourself, whereas that's where you get the other orb in the level, and so those guys can be very annoying to deal with. Not hard by any means, but can be annoying. But going back to the whole turning off the generator that's got power off the fritz. after you've actually completed it, it becomes annoying to get back, which again kind of like leads into the fact that you need to leave the way that you came in. So there is that as well. Yeah, so I guess it's just kind of, orbs are kind of annoying, and the overall look and location is quite dreary. Whereas like say Summer Forest, Glimmer, and Idle Springs, at least they have like a more sort of inviting air. And especially with Summer Forest, the music, it feels like it wants to encourage exploration, whereas Hurricos, I feel like more often than not you're likely going to be falling off the edge of the level anyways. So there's that. Sunny Beach. So Sunny Beach, this one leaves me a little bit confused because pretty much the entire level, in a way, is an escort quest. Most of the two of the orbs are escort quests in this, where you have to stop a bunch of turtles from being turned into soup. But you're walking around with a bunch of baby turtles and getting them to the end of the level. And there's an interesting group of lots of different types of enemies, and you would think that my bias towards beaches and water would leave me in a more sort of positive light with Sunny Beach, but it doesn't feel like a beach. I think it's way too enclosed in terms of actual areas. This is going to go into B. This is going into B. Because the areas are way too enclosed, which kind of makes sense, I guess, when you're talking about, baby turtles. The enemies are... the opening video is absolutely hilarious. Actually, no. The ending video when you leave the level for the first time for Sunny Beach is absolutely hilarious, which involves these turtles zapping the actual enemies that, tried to kidnap them and turn them into soup earlier on. So that's a neat thing to see. Yeah, I don't think there's really much more to say, I don't think. Because, it's just very enclosed areas. The orbs are okay at best. Granted, you do have to come back after you learn how to climb. Same with Summer Forest and Glimmer. So you can't really 100% on the first go. Next on the list is Aquaria Towers, and this one I'm going to give a solid C. So swimming was something that I really didn't enjoy in this game all that much. Yeah, swimming is fine when you're doing it from small locations, but Aquaria Towers, once you've completed the entire level, the whole level becomes a swimming zone. The sharks are annoying to deal with, which you will have to if you want to get all of the gems in the level. Plus, you do get a skill point out of it, which I do appreciate, so I guess thanks for that. You're giving us a reason to do it. If only skill points meant more than just getting a single life out of it, but, you lose a lot of life from trying to destroy a bunch of robot sharks, Yeah, due to how not so great the swimming is in this game, Aquaria Towers suffers immensely because of it. And again, the significant majority of this level is going to be spent, especially if you're going for 100%, will be spent swimming around from place to place. So, yeah, you gotta be careful with them sharks, Plus, you can miss out on gems very easily. Also, going up the 6 towers, I don't know why, I was always left confused as to why we were doing that anyways, besides saving the kids, but, it is what it is. Not a great level, mainly suffers from the fact that swimming just isn't great in this level, in this game overall. Now, Ocean Speedway is next on the list, and again, you would think that I love beaches, I love water, I love, those sorts of locations in games. Ocean Speedway is getting a solid D. I don't like speedways. Granted, I know how to do them, and it's all easy and junk, but let's be real for a moment. Speedways, they exist as something to add a bit more of a challenge. And granted, when I was a kid, I hated speedways. But I've since warmed up to them. It's just the whole idea of there also being a secret task involved after completing the speedway, which needs to be done. And more often than not, you're never doing the speedways in the order in which the game intended. Instead, you're figuring out your own way to do it because it just happens to be quicker that way. But yeah, so Ocean Speedway, not great. I love the location, don't get me wrong, it's just the speedway element is very detrimental to the whole thing. And I think this is going to set a very interesting precedent already for what other speedways are going to be treated like. Next is Crusher's Dungeon. I don't know if I want to mark, if I want to rank boss fights as well. Because boss fights are pretty much all the same. Actually, you know what, there's only 3 boss fights. Let's include them. Crusher's Dungeon. I give that a solid B. The reason why I give it a B is because it's a fairly basic boss fight. You just go around dodging the attacks, flaming him, and then flaming Crush hits the ground, and then debris from the ceiling crushes him, ultimately dealing damage. Until he somehow gets smart enough, which after getting, hit on the head by rocks as much as he does, he actually, figures things out and is like, okay, you know what? You know what I should be doing? I should be chasing this guy, and then when I get close, trying to hit him. Genius. So at least, the boss fight is fair in terms of length, albeit it does seem a little bit more lengthier than it should be, but I digress. Basic and easy to understand when you kind of get your head around it. Unfortunately, you kind of need to figure all of that stuff out yourself. Moving on. Autumn Plains. So this one gets a solid A. I was thinking about giving this an S. And the reason for it is because it's a great location, it's wide open, there's some, again, really good secrets, different from the way Summer Forest treats its secrets, locations, just being careful about the area that you're in, the things around you, it looks really nice. I think the only detrimental thing is it just doesn't have as many secrets as, say, Summer Forest, and it doesn't feel quite as lush. I feel like, no, actually the music is pretty good. Actually, you know what? Autumn Plains going at an S. You know what? Screw it. We need to put something there. I think for all the reasons that I've said, it's more than enough to give Autumn Plains bump up from A to S. I was going to give it a high A, but you know what? I'm not going to lose sleep over giving Autumn Plains a high spot. Skelos Badlands. Now, Skelos Badlands is an interesting level because it's all about, these guys getting attacked by dinosaurs, for some reason, dinosaurs are hatching eggs all over the place and trying to eat people. That's kind of the main thing, is that it's more based on the whole magma everywhere and just that sort of thing. So definitely sort of primordial theming of the level. Now with this one, I don't view it too highly because it is actually, when you really think about it, quite narrow in terms of places to go to in the level. You can only really just sort of follow the path as you go along it, and then kind of do the side activities as you come across them, or just go through inlets or small places. Yeah, there are a lot of small places to go through that have gems and other things in them, but it doesn't feel as great because I feel like you're just being directed for the most part. So I think this gives it solid C. Crystal Glacier. Now, Crystal Glacier. The orbs in this level are good. Would I say that they're great now? That's difficult. Because I would put it probably at a B if it weren't for the fact that there is the whole we have to fire a button, flame a bunch of respawning. I forgot what they're called. Little green things as you go through a cave, which you can only get to by dropping down into the actual area where the task giver for this orb is. So it's interesting. I don't think. Yeah, I would say that this isn't a great level. It definitely is better than Hurricos in terms of actual. You know what? I'm gonna put it as a B. Because it's better than most locations in terms of the theming of the location. So it's just a bunch of Eskimo people in ice locations helping you get from place to place, given that you're helping them not be frozen anymore. And honestly, the massive snowball that you drop down on the head of the leader of these guys is actually kind of funny. What lets it down is the orb where you need to go fly through a cave and flame a bunch of regenerating green toxic thingamajigs. I can't even remember what they're called. That would definitely be more in the annoying category. And in terms of level design, it's pretty basic. Yeah, I don't think there's really much to say. Next we have a Zephyr. Now Zephyr's getting a solid A. The openness of the level is great. The most annoying thing, and the reason why I didn't give Zephyr an S, is because the birds that are flying in the sky can bomb you at any time, and it can get incredibly unfair. And is a level where you may very well end up dying a lot because of these things. But other than that, the openness of the level, after you've passed the initial area and the first cave, you can go through a lot of different places, you can do a lot of different things. It's genuinely creative how they've tackled the beanstalk orbs, there is a lot of creativity on display, and I very much appreciate that. I feel like Zephyr has a lot more openness and creativity in a way that a lot of levels lack. Speaking of levels that lack creativity but still have something going on for them, Breeze Harbor. This one's getting a C for me because as much as I enjoy Breeze Harbor as a level, you're going from place to place, getting rid of monsters that are getting rid of all of the fire, but the birds need the fire in order to be able to power up all of their being able to heat things up, being able to use their airship and things like that. The enemies are incredibly annoying, and the orbs aren't all that fun to go for. So a level that feels significantly more like a chore, and also the fact that there isn't really much ground in this level, surprisingly enough. So the lack of ground means falling off and falling into absolute nothingness half the time, which is kind of where something that Hurricos was definitely that I was down on Hurricos about, but Breeze Harbor has it much worse. So there's Breeze Harbor. Scorch. Scorch is an interesting one. Again, I feel like no matter how you think about it, most of these are going to be interesting. In Scorch's opinion, or in favor of Scorch, the location is in a desert as you save both Hansel and Gretel, I want to say. I can't remember their names. The two kids, the siblings. As you help them through the level. In between getting through the level and the desert and reuniting them, you also will be saving flags from Bombo, which is an interesting. I say interesting. It's not really that fun of a task to do, and other than that, there are a couple of sort of areas. Say, helping Hunter with the barrel of monkeys was really funny though. So that was a joke worth going for. I actually don't really like this level all that much. I'm gonna put that as C. Even though I don't like it, it's not the worst thing to happen to the level as a whole. Keeping in mind that Spyro 2 is my favorite of all of the Spyro games, so I'm actually going to be, those are on the C and D, and especially I'm going to be very hard on, or I'm being very harsh on, and I'm kind of being a little bit more skeptical, and anything that goes into S just kind of, I hope, shows how great the game can be. Fracture Hills. Oof. Now, what do I do with this level? Because I appreciate its openness. Having indestructible enemies, though, kind of a little bit difficult to deal with. But the thing is that they're not necessarily indestructible. The Earth Shapers are these giant boss monster-like things, but the only way to kill them is to actually tackle them into lava. And the only way you can deal with those that are not near lava is to head bash them, helping out Hunter. Actually, you know what? I'm going to put this at a B. Because you can kind of, even though Earth Shapers are the worst thing of the level, they're also the best thing at the same time. Because there's an orb whereby you need to protect the professor, or a professor rather, who's going to give Hunter, who's been trapped in stone, into give him a potion, or put a potion on him that will turn him back into normal. and he turned to stone because of those earth shapers. So once you have the ability to head bash, which you learn in Winter Tundra, you can then come back and actually get some revenge on them, which is actually kind of refreshing in a way. So you know what? I was gonna give it a C. Fracture Hills gets solid B in my books. Magma Cone. I don't like the music of this level. I don't know why. I can still hear it in my head. I'm just not a fan of it. But yeah, I'm just not a fan of like the music and all that sort of thing. The enemies are annoying. The Earth Shapers return. Granted, this time you can actually deal with them a lot better, but again, they're still equally as annoying to deal with them for the fact that they have their pickaxes. Dealing with the pop rocket. So racing, hunter, and grabbing pop rockets, which is a couple of the orbs that you get, can be very annoying as well. So I think C is where it goes. It's just not as fun of a level. So I think what C tends to lack is fun. Aquaria Towers is kind of the ability to swim around. Skelos Badlands is the lack of variety and the fact that you just kind of follow a singular path with some small areas in between. And magma everywhere. Magma Cone, the music isn't great. Scorch and Breeze Harbor just feel way too basic at this point. I feel like you kind of need to add a little bit more to the level to make it more interesting. But then we move to Shady Oasis, which... Okay, this one I'm very confused about because I think that this might end up getting a B or a C for me. So I guess if I really think it out, the thieves are annoying. The level design is kind of annoying in the sense that you do need to actually follow the task or the first person that you run into. You need to actually help him out by giving him apples in order to grow massive and then be able to bust his way through majority of it. But then I suppose in a way it's also eloquently designed because it opens... The level is surprisingly open, but it opens up in a sort of unique way, and it is designed in a unique manner as well. So I think this gets a B. Yeah, definitely a B. Metro and Icy Speedway, both of these are going to go in D. I like the task in Metro Speedway. No, actually Icy Speedway. The task in Icy Speedway was good. Metro Speedway was okay. I'm just not a fan of speedways in general. I just don't like them. But again, they exist. Again, they are just the flight levels from the original, just all over again. Gulp's Overlook. Now, many of the levels between Reignited and the original game are fairly similar, with the one very peculiar exception, and that is Gulp's Overlook. The way Gulp works in the original game is... it's hard to say whether it's better or worse, because the Reignited version of this boss fight is a lot more difficult. So simply put, he's got a bunch of like blasters on his shoulders, or on his back rather, that he's carrying pretty hard, and he kind of just goes around and blasts you. But the thing is that he can actually predict where you're about to go to, and that's what makes it more difficult, whereas in the original game, he will only attack where you were at the time in which he fired the shot. So it's very easy to dodge, and you can likely never get hit, given that you're always charging. So they would get two very different scores. The original would get a B, but I would give the Reignited an A, because it gives a much needed challenge that is necessary. Plus, the only reason why I wouldn't give this boss fight an S is because the boss fight is A, way too long. Like, he's got so much health it's not even funny. Trying to charge things into him, actually, you know what, now that I think about it, maybe it'll just be a B. Because charging items into him is very annoying because you have a variety of different items that you can use to get his health down. You have barrels that you can tackle into him, charge into him rather. You have rockets that you could fire at him, but you need to be looking at him, otherwise it's going to go off in a completely different direction and hit something else. And And then you've got something that can actually home in on him that I can't quite remember. But yeah. So you've got an interesting group of items to use to get Gulp's health down. But if you stand near any of the items in between him getting hit, he will actually jump. And when he hits the ground, all the explosives will explode and will damage you as well. So you've got to be incredibly careful, and it takes way too many hits to take him out. So I think for all the good that it does with the challenge, everything else kind of just brings it down a bit. So I think B is a fair assessment of that. Now we have Winter Tundra. Winter Tundra is actually pretty plain in terms of like overall location. It's actually really small. Yes, there are still some good secrets here and there, but it's the weakest hub area of all in the entire game, without a doubt. Yeah. And it's also got the least amount of levels, but then the only reason Winter Tundra exists is because something screwed up in Winter Tundra after Spyro and the crew, Spyro was pretty much relaxing after defeating Gulp, and the assumption that Ripto was somehow defeated as well. Next we have is Mystic Marsh. I'm giving Mystic Marsh a C. I was going to give it a D. I hated the enemies in Mystic Marsh. It felt incredibly unfair when I was little, but having replayed it in the Reignited trilogy, it did make me feel at least a bit better about it. You've got the ground level, then you've got the higher level in terms of land, and then you've got like the upper level between a bunch of like a sort of a figure 8 series of platforms going around above the lower area. So there is at least some sense of variety in the level. But I'm just not a fan of the enemies. The reasoning for the level seems a little bit weak. It just feels like it was an extra level to be put on for the sake of there being an extra level. The thieves are annoying. And I think with the design of the level, the thieves become much more worse that way. So rather than using the level's design to its advantage, it actually makes it worse with the tasks that you're given. And also trying to figure out where certain things go. Sometimes it's easy, sometimes it's annoyingly difficult. But more often than not, you're probably going to look up a walkthrough to try and get that particular orb anyways, which is trying to get the professor's pin back by trading random items until you finally get the final item, which is the pencil that the professor needed. Cloud Temples. I feel like most of the later levels in the game are pretty weak. Cloud Temple. I'll say for verticality alone, it kind of deserves an A, because there are certain areas in the level where it's quite open in terms of how you can get there. Like once you have the ability to use once you've defeated enough enemies to activate the ice breath power up, you actually can then access more areas, and also you can follow a very, very bad secret agent who sucks at keeping secrets to a secret lair, who then treats you as one of his own when he finds you in the secret lair right behind him, without him noticing that you were following him the whole time, which I think is actually quite funny. So I think Cloud Temples gets a solid B from me. Robotica Farms. I like the music. I hate the birds. If you know the birds, you know the birds. So pretty much there are a couple of scarecrows that aren't scaring away the birds, and the birds are just standing on the scarecrows making fun of them. So you need to run around and actually flame all the birds. But if you don't flame the birds in time, the birds will keep coming back until you eventually get all of them at once. And they fly a lot, so they can be very annoying to get. That is a particularly annoying task, but then there is also charging through all of the pumpkins that are blocking a roadway, which also can be incredibly annoying if you're underprepared and is much more difficult in the original than in the Reignited trilogy. The theming of the level is pretty neat. The design is overall pretty good. I actually kind of like the design, so I feel like significant majority of the levels are going to go into B, but there's another B rank for you in Robotica Farms. Metropolis used to be my favorite level in the game. Futuristic-y, fairly open level, has some good qualities to it, has a lot of negative qualities, specifically the boss fight against the Ox, and I think that's really about it. That's the only thing I don't like about it. So I'm vibing with the music. The hazards are interesting because they're very different due to how they're very different from most of the levels because it's treated to be more futuristic-y. Yeah, and then the flying sheep sources. And actually, you know what? This is another thing that makes the level quite unique. Besides the actual level theme, the level structure, and the progression, is also the fact that you get a Super Fire and Super Fly dual power up at the end of the level. So actually, you know what? This is getting a solid A from me. Canyon Speedway. Again, I think with all speedways, Canyon also goes into the bottom tier because again, I think of all the speedways, Metro might be the worst. Ocean is at least nice because it's in a great location. Icy is only good because of its, its additional or secret, going around parasailing with Hunter task. But with Canyon Speedway, it doesn't have a great task, which is shooting a bunch of balloons, which you can quite easily miss. It feels tight, but usually when you say something is tight, it means that there isn't a lot of wasted space. But I feel like there is still a lot of wasted space, so it feels tight in all the wrong ways. Just like going through very thin driving locations in which you can actually still miss the actual carts that you're trying to ram into. When you're flaming the actual rams or sheep or things that you're seeing on the level right now, that can also be incredibly annoying. Because you can quite easily hit the sides and fall off. So, I think between Metro and Canyon, either of them could quite possibly be the weakest speedway, Ocean being the strongest, but even then, it's just the whole speedway part that really doesn't do it for me. Now, speaking of moving on, Ripto's Arena. Now, so I gave Gulp and Crush both a B rank. Crush for its simplicity, Gulp for the fact that using the weapons can be incredibly annoying and just going through the boss fight is just a little bit too overlong. Ripto's Arena falls into the overlong camp, but the entire fight makes it feel like more of a finality than most other boss fights, because it's a 3-stage boss fight at the end of the day. The first stage being just sort of a one-on-one between you and Ripto as you try and get a bunch of orbs to power yourself up, just as he tries to power himself up. Get 3 of a single color, and then you'll just end up using that ability. Get 3 of a mix of colors, and you'll get one of the 2 abilities, or one of the 3 abilities of the orbs that you've picked up. At the end of the day, actually, you know what? Second one involves fighting Ripto on the top of like a Robo Gulp, and then finally you're flying around with permanent Superfly while attacking Ripto while he's on the bird that's on fire, while the entire arena is covered in lava. I'm gonna get this a C. Despite its sense of finality, it still isn't as good of a boss fight as Gulp or Crush. But when it comes to boss fight, I think Gulp's might be the best, and that's only due to the challenge. Though Crush's boss fight is expedient enough, that's why I'm having difficulty choosing between the two. Ripto's boss fight does feel somewhat weak in that sense, that not only is it overlong, but it just doesn't feel like it really brings anything more to the table than just some sense of finality. Yeah, it's hard to really be able to judge boss fights. But finally, we're here to the final level that I've got on the list, which is Dragon Shores. Now, Dragon Shores gets a solid C. It's not as bad as a Speedway. There isn't anything that goes for it. The fact of the matter is that with all of the all of the Spyro games, all bonus extra additional levels that you unlock later on, or at the end of the game, or by getting 100%, they're all fairly weak. It's all about grabbing a large amount of gems or getting a bunch of orbs, or just one orb or one dragon egg or that sort of thing. Dragon Shores, and this applies to pretty much all bonus levels. They're very, very weak in terms of actual level design. And the thing about Dragon Shores is that it's practically an interactive theme park. That's what Dragon Shores is. It's just a theme park. You go in, you do a few activities, you get all the tokens, and once you've got all the tokens, you unlock the theater. And then that's it. You know, you can go back and watch all the cutscenes in the theater, and that's all nice and all, but it just doesn't feel like it's worth going through all the effort that the game has asked you to, play through and beat. However, it does have a good point whereby you do get an excellent reward for getting 100% in the game. There is a door in Dragon Shores that says you need all 64 orbs, all 10,000 gems in the game, and if you do, this door will open, and when you open the door, you get the a permanent Super Fire power-up. Which is cool because you've done everything in the game. You have now been able to fundamentally break the game in half like a giant Kit Kat and be able to enjoy breaking everything else. It's just exists for the sake of it being fun. But by that point, you kind of lose the will to play more because you've done everything. But also, it's funny because I think, from my perspective, I unlocked Super Fire and earned the Platinum Trophy for this game and got 100% completion about 8 hours into the game. Yeah, it took me about 8-ish hours. So, it's not a long game. But yeah, all in all, that's kind of my thoughts on all the levels in Spyro 2. This went for much longer than I expected because I didn't expect to go into as much detail as I did, but then again, I feel like I could go into so much more detail because there are some levels I didn't talk as much about, so it'll be interesting, like, if anybody ever wants to see that. I mean, let me know in the comments below, but until then, I'll see you guys next time.